Hello, welcome to another episode of This, That, and the Other. And it's interesting how things get started sometimes, and I'll give an example. I was thinking about a barn that existed in Vienna, and it was on a hill off of Maple Avenue, and it was a big white barn. It was torn down in 1978, but I always wanted to know the history of it, and I put a message in one of the Vienna Facebook pages, which I've done before. The first time I did that, I got some smart aleck response, but this time I got some legitimate responses. I found it was the Hart's Vienna barn, and it was basically a swap shop. It was actually, that barn was used for a number of things, and originally a regular farmer's barn. But anyway, I looked up swap shop. I went to YouTube. Well, I found some swap shop swap shop shows on the radio and on YouTube that Howard Stern had a couple of his guys prank call. Well, I saw them prank calling chess now, and so I thought, okay, I have to check this thing out. It started in January of 2007, episode 1. It was on every 2 weeks, and it ended up with episode 78. But this show, it was filled with a lot of dead air. It would have pretty women hosting it, and people would call in and say they wanted to make a move, and they wouldn't really give the people enough time to move this chess pieces. None of the girls on there knew how to play chess. So a guy would call in and have to establish whether he's black or white, and then they'd say, okay, you're white. Okay, I want to move the rook in front of the bishop up 2 spaces, and then the internet would make a move, and they would, if the person didn't make a move fast enough, they'd cut them off, go to another caller, or start another game. I never saw an actual game finish on there. I've only watched the first 10 episodes. I plan to watch every one of them because I don't know, this thing, it's one of those things where I guess it's so bad I've gotten addicted to it. It starts out with piano playing, and they show a chessboard. They show black and white squares. That's basically what they're showing. And I looked at, and the first episodes 1 and 3 had a Russian lady on there. Episode 2 had a pretty woman, and she got a lot of prank calls from the Howard Stern guys. I think maybe that's why she stopped being on there. After the Russian woman, a couple of episodes had this Hispanic woman, and they've had this woman that's from, I don't know, Jamaica, or I don't know what country she's from, but she speaks French as well, but she'll open up speaking in French. But they had her on one episode, her first episode, where they had that Russian woman in production. It shows there'd be banter between the two of them. They show brief footage of her now and then, but it's one of those things where, first of all, person intros the show, and then they say, okay, we got to get the board set up. Well, there's like a 5-minute delay while it says, please stand by while we set the board up. Logic tells me, if you're going to run a show like that, why don't you set the board up before the show starts? I didn't understand all that, but what they also didn't really understand, none of these girls knew how to play chess. They admitted it, and one of the things they didn't know about chess was that it takes longer than a few seconds to make a move in chess. I used to play chess about 40 years ago. It's been a long time. I'd almost forgotten how these. I forgot how the rook moved. I had to look on the internet to find that out. I know how the other players move. I don't remember if the pawn moves 2 spaces up, or if it ever has the option of 1 or 2. I can't remember that. I know the bishop goes at an angle. The knight goes 2 up, and then one to the right or to the left. The rook goes 1 space, and I think straight or to the side. Pawns, like I said, they go 1 or 2 spaces ahead, and the queen can go as far as she wants in any direction. The king goes 1 space at a time in any direction. But the object is to checkmate the king. You put them in check where you're in the position to capture them. You tell the person they're in check, and then the person has to move the piece out. When they're in checkmate, they're trapped with a point that they can't move it out, and the game's over. That's basically how that thing. You get so many pieces are gone from each side, it ends up being stalemate. It's no way anybody can win the game. That happens as well. But like I said, I played the game 40 years ago, and it has been a long time. I would be rusty if I tried to play that game now. I could probably get back to playing it. But episode 8, I believe, had 2 guys on it that were co-workers playing a chess game. It's kind of interesting to watch them with a real big chess set. But that show was kind of odd the way they had that thing. Like I said, it had a lot of dead air, and they were rushing people. They would go to one person would call in and they'd ask you, how are you, what's your name, all that, do you play chess, that kind of stuff, how did you find out about the show? But you're taking up all that time, and they'd say, okay, hurry, make a move. And like I said, you don't rush to make moves in chess. It's not the way the game goes. Anyway, they'd finally make a move. Let's say I want the knight to, or not, I'm gonna move the knight over, up and one to the knight on the right side up, and one space to the left, and the internet would move the next piece, and then they'd say, okay, we got another caller coming in, or and then I talk to that person, and we run out of time, we got to start another game. So I never actually saw any game actually end on that show yet. Like I said, I've watched the first 10 episodes. There's 78 of them altogether. I will eventually get through them all. I'm curious to see how the show evolves. They later had, after that girl, they had an African American man for a while, and then throughout most of the duration of the show, they had a Middle Eastern guy, maybe India, that was hosting the show. And I see pictures, and it seems like they had more episodes where men were playing chess with each other later on in the show. I'm looking at like pictures of episode 54. So like I said, I'm going to keep watching the show, but it's one of the more obscure subjects. I do discuss obscure subjects, and this is a part of history. This show was on 10 years ago on Cable Access Network, and just wanted to discuss it because I thought it was one of the more obscure ones. This might be the top 5 obscure subjects that I've ever discussed. But looking for a partner, looking for a producer, like, subscribe, share. As always, thanks for watching.